So which means for every organization, I advocate put people at the center of your AI transformation. So how do you make people the center of your AI transformation? You need to reskill people. Reskill people about what this technology is, what it can do for them, the skills they need, how they can even use these tools. So you're adding another layer of value to the people who work for you. Because at the end of the day, you're either going to get rid of everyone or you're going to reskill them to become more valuable for you. And then you remove the issue of what you call, redundant gatekeepers in your organization. Because, most people I talk to is like, am I going to lose my job if this thing happens? And the answer to that question is yes.
It will happen.
Yes, if you're not reskilled. Yes, if you don't have the skill to be part of this. And I don't mean as be an engineer. No. I don't mean be a data scientist. No, those are different. I just mean an AI readiness for people in your organization.
Hi, this is Growthwell podcast coming from Gaborone, Botswana. This is Oabona Kgengwenyane, and today we are bringing a very special guest. But before I do that, just be reminded that this is a podcast that brings you insights and ideas that can make positive impact and really, really impactful stuff for Africa and hopefully the developing world as well. So this is a podcast that's for Botswana and for Africa. So whether you are sitting in Nairobi, in Lagos, in Eswatini, this hopefully will also help you wherever you are sitting. Today, we are on technology and especially AI. We bring you a very special guest by the name of John Kamara. John Kamara is one of the leading technologists in AI. He will say more about himself, but he has very special orientation where he is from Ireland. He regards himself as European, but a couple of years ago, he decided to come back to Africa to help with our development process. So John, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So John, we usually start the podcast with a bit of a light moment. And usually I start with what really makes me tick as well. So one of the things that I think I did share with you that I'm an engineer. I worked in the corporate for a while. I worked for a company called Botswana for a couple of years till I found that I am someone who's always hunger for knowledge and to do that and also for teaching. So that's how I found my career in consulting, and I broke away. They call them corporate refugees when you run away from corporate. So one of the things that I do every day without fail is 15 minutes of reading a book. And I read books from a wide. I mean, whether it's fiction or not fiction, but obviously a lot of it is fiction because I'm always eager to know what's happening in technology, eager to know what's happening in the future of technology. Obviously, in consulting, we also do things like organizational design, business development, marketing, and all those kind of things. So this is something that I have for many years done on everyday basis. Just read. And also just inspires. One of the things that I say is that sometimes when you read a book, it's like, this writer, what did you know about me? How did you know that this is talking to me? And this is something that really boosts me on a daily basis. So I just wanted to find you from yourself in terms of what really makes you tick as an individual, as such a well-traveled, I mean, the countries you've traveled and all that, what keeps that energy with you?
Something I do every day that makes me tick. I find about 5 minutes when I wake up, I think for the past 5, 6, 7 years now, I just laugh.
And then there I go.
Just laugh before I start my day.
Yeah.
My days can be extremely difficult, hectic. upside down, all sorts of things, negative, positive connotation. But I find about 5 minutes by myself, I just laugh.
You just laugh by yourself?
Alone, yes. I laugh at things that happen.
Do you make sure that nobody's watching? Or...
Yeah, it's personal.
It's
I
personal.
laugh at things that happen during the day. I laugh at myself. I create scenarios that makes me laugh. So it helps me just sort of get into a mood in my day. And so that's been one thing that I've been consistently doing now.
Couple of years?
About 6-7 years now.
But how do you trigger the laugh? Or you just laugh and the positive, the dopamine is all flow because of just laughing? I mean, how does that...
I just think about laughing like now and I just laugh. There's nothing to
think about. It.
Yeah,
that's the idea, isn't it?
The other option is to cry or to feel sad. So I choose to just laugh. So that's right. It's really good. I mean, it helps me a lot. And I walk into places and I just laugh at strangers and they get really freaked out. So I also practice it during the day, or sometimes I'm looking at you and I'm laughing. I'm not necessarily laughing at you in a bad way. I'm just trying to get you to stop being serious. Like the guy there is being very serious. Like,
get him to laugh. It's contagious, isn't it?
It's a beautiful thing.
That's true. No, thanks, John. John, you are very well traveled, as you said, and thanks very much. I know that earlier you ran a round table for business leaders here in Botswana, here at the Botswana Innovation Hub, where we had a very insightful session with you, and I really appreciate you making the time to come to Botswana. I know that tomorrow we've got the iConnect conference, which Inolid is hosting with some sponsors, and we're very excited for you to speak at that conference. But in terms of yourself, you are the founder of Adanian Labs, and you previously worked for Google and Yahoo, as you told us earlier on. And your insights and knowledge of what's happening with AI and how it's going to impact the world, or how it's impacting the world now, is quite profound. So can you just share with us as to how did all this start up to where we are right now with yourself?
I think that a lot of it is really, personally, there's the personal side and there's just a globalization opportunity, right? Personally for me, it's always just been being a student of knowledge, like always trying to learn stuff and always taking my disadvantage and turning it into an advantage in whatever situation I found myself. So from, living in Ireland, working for some of the big corporates and deciding to become an entrepreneur, but all these things did not define my journey. My journey was defined by the fact that I wanted to learn things all the time. So I realized that I spent like 2-3 years in companies just because I got really bored. So I would spend 2-3 years and I'd move on. I'd spend 2-3 years and I'd move on. And most of the companies I was joining them when they were in their super early stages. So then I realized that I just like to learn, the freedom to learn in a place. And I had no idea what entrepreneurship was then, but then slowly when folks were explaining to me, hey, this is what it looks like to be an entrepreneur. So I figured that I like the early days of difficult problems. I thrive much better when I'm just thrown into a chaotic situation where doesn't make any sense, or where I have to figure something out from scratch. And I find that I enjoy my resilience, pushing my resilience to different levels. So, and I didn't really like when things became settled and nice. So I like to suffer.
You don't thrive in calm waters.
No, like I call it, I like to suffer. So that's how my journey started. And AI was just another part of those things where, people are learning this interesting way of doing things. It was just a way of doing things better. There were other technologies like, Qt, blockchain that even had more prominence, but AI had been around for much longer than a lot of this technology. It was just hidden inside of a number of different things.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like how my journey, it was actually more me interested in the technology, trying to figure out what it could do and how I could use it than anything else. And that's sort of like over time, that interest just grew into understanding the economic benefit of that technology for myself, for my career, first of all, and then for, people and things that I want to do. And also because, I think about things a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years before. So I always think about, okay, what's going to happen 2 years from now? So I spend a lot of time on my own.
Okay.
What would happen 2 years from now? Then I start trying to understand, putting dots together of where things are and what could happen. So I sometimes run too fast. I build for the future.
Just to find out that it's not going to happen.
So that would be how I would, position my journey into this space so far.
Okay. I'm always thrilled or quite inquisitive about what makes entrepreneurs. I just wanted to get you back to this thing of thriving in a bit of chaos. And I want to associate, and this is going a little bit into psychology, the fact that you and the whole thing of immigrants and the hunger, the fact that you were born in Nigeria, and then you went to Ireland as a young man, and then Europe opened up, and you've been up and down Europe, London, and then also global, working for these global entities, and now in Africa, a Nairobi-based company. Does that, do you think, contribute to your burning desires to make a difference, or this suffering? I'm just saying because as an entrepreneur, I know that part of our scheme, it is to suffer. And if you don't learn to suffer, you won't last. Period. We've got instances where, either clients give you a hard time, you struggle with stuff, you struggle with cash flows, and it can go on for months. And you still have to have a good sleep. As an entrepreneur, you got to learn to have a good sleep, irrespective of that. So I'm just wondering do you think there's a bit of a link in terms of your context and how you see life and how you approach all these things?
I think entrepreneurship also helps you to appreciate objectivity of life a lot better because you're doing something that most people won't do. Yeah. And it's not really about, do I become super successful? No, it's really the micro tractions of, impact that you make in your own life, in other people's life, and you're making success. So once you understand the definition of micro tractions of value in everything that you do, so you're not judging yourself by, I haven't made $1 million. That's right. It's like I've woken up today and I've kept this company alive. Micro traction. Okay. I'm waking up tomorrow and I figured out how I can find money for something else to pay me. Even so, you're consistently learning the value of micro tractions, and you warehouse those things that sort of like build your own shield of how and I think that changes your perspective of life because you tend to see life a little bit differently than most people. People always see, problems or situations where things are unattainable, but you're just sort of going into it that what's the worst that can happen? Okay, what's the worst that can happen happens. As long as I'm not dead, and if I'm dead, then that's also fine because I'm no longer here. So so in either worst case scenario, I can, if I'm still alive, then so I do a lot of worst case analysis for pretty much every situation. I look at the worst case, and once I understand the worst case,
what ifs and all
and
that.
if I'm okay with that, then it's fine. The situation will happen. It doesn't mean that you not get emotionally caught up in it, but you still. So, and then travel, I think, also gives you a different view of life. Yeah. It also helps you to understand that you're not unique in certain things.
That's right.
But also helps you to appreciate, the value propositions of other people and how they also evolve in their own form of lifestyle. So when you combine that together, and you sort of like, I guess, ask yourself questions why you became an entrepreneur. People became entrepreneurs for different reasons. I think that's one of the questions you need to answer. Why is it that you became an entrepreneur?
Yeah. And it's interesting because during our time, I entered entrepreneurship not even knowing the definition, not even knowing that it's almost a fancy thing. Like these days, like a rock star thing when you are a successful entrepreneur. But I went into it because I wanted to make a difference in something that was passionate to me in terms of knowledge and making companies competitive. So it's interesting that you said you also almost just went into it, but I went into, and then, like you said, in terms of the traction and the value that you add, I mean, one of the things that I do, as I've explained to you, is farming. And when I go to the farm and I see the farm workers that, they are better off this year compared to last year. Now they own a few goats. Some of them, we facilitate that they have cattle for the first time in their lives. And for an African man to have a cow, it's a big deal. And I can see these men really feeling good, And then, just recently, one of the farm workers, we were selling to the Meat Commission, and one of his trolleys were part of the pack. And just, helping him to get the money. I was like, yeah, I might not be doing big things. I might not be a millionaire dollar, but in the end, that's the difference. That's my day. That's my day made. So that's quite interesting. Back to the AI. Now, in terms of AI, John, I think you saw in the roundtable earlier on that we are all at different levels of understanding what AI is. And some did admit, even if they're in leadership positions, that it's just a few months that they've been exposed and trying to understand it. So how do you explain in very simple terms what AI is? And you can add to that as to why it is such a critical technology in modern day.
Lots of different people. And first of all, you keep calling it DAI. It's actually just AI.
AI.
It's not that. Then you're giving it so like an AGI life that is going to come into existence. It's just AI. It's like, how do you explain, like I said earlier on, it's really just training a bunch of data in a program to do things faster and just keep learning faster and help you with everyday life and help you see, patterns and correlations that your naked eyes or your brain can't compete at the speed at which you can do it. And then connects with other types of, programs like that to do things faster and quicker again and build complex models.
Yeah.
So it's like me and you, it's like a workshop. You start with one person. That person is one agent. So all my knowledge is inside there. I become faster. I build a program underneath all that knowledge, and that thing can do it faster. Then there's 4 of us in a room, and 4 of us are now programs, and we can do it faster. So each one of us are connecting. So we now know one thing, and we can do that one thing faster than. So it's really, it's not some, but again, behind that is a lot of algorithm development, mathematical equations, but at the core of it is taking human intelligence and making it faster via programs, and then giving those programs, the oomph to learn by themselves based on the environment and more they fed.
That's simply what it is. That's almost simulating what we're doing in our brains.
Yeah, but your brain is an AI. Your brain
that's not artificial.
Yeah, it's human intelligence. So that's why it's intelligence, human and artificial intelligence. Both of them, the critical thing is intelligence. Forget the artificial or the human. It's actually intelligence. So intelligence means that either it's cow intelligence, human intelligence, animal intelligence, whatever. It's intelligence. It's just which one is more. And on the one side, with artificial intelligence, you have to train it.
So it's still dependent on the human to train it. Yeah.
So,
yeah. And then so much hullabaloo around AI, and from a digital economy perspective, why is we have a country like Botswana, which has progressed in a way that's very commendable in the past years. As it's a beacon of democracy, but mainly around GDP, how we've, but through our natural resources, which has mainly been diamonds. And now, as if you've read the newspaper articles of late, there's a sort of a dark cloud hanging over Botswana in terms of the diamond sales since last year, with the DBS, Anglo, and Botswana government all running around to see how that can be saved. So, and some of us who are technology enthusiasts, in terms of not just enthusiasts, but thinking that it could be an alternative to as the next Botswana Pty Limited economy engine. So the question is how do we make AI into an alternative economy? What is an ROI for a country or for an organization to really go deeper into the exploration of AI? Interestingly, during the roundtable, we did present a slide which had everybody staring at the screen around the companies which are AI charged, and globally, the top ones, and none came from Africa. I mean, that really got us thinking. But what is the return for Africa to really jump onto the bandwagon?
You know, if you go back to what you mentioned, that Botswana has been very successful, extracting its mineral resources and turning it into wealth. But it hasn't been very successful in forward thinking about new economy.
Correct.
So compared to Dubai, the UAE is successful in extracting oil. But what did they do? They built a whole multiple economies using the base foundation. It wasn't just about growing the GDP of the people. Because like any mineral resources, there are unknown factors that will happen. You cannot be riding that way forever. Things will happen. So how do you build secondary economies off the baseline success and wealth that you have?
That you have created, yeah.
That is the fundamental problem of Africans' government. It's no different. It's not, people forget AI. It's just simple that somebody in Botswana 2030 or Botswana 2050, Botswana 2025, in 2015, should have seen like, well, we're making all this money. Let us plot the chart of the world. Where are the key things and what are other things that we have that we can develop that forms a whole new economy for us? By now, you're not going to be having this conversation with or without AI.
Yeah.
And it's not about developing some kind of robust strategy. It's actually, the thinking to design, architect a new economy on top of the one that you have and execute on that economy piece by piece. So AI is, when you then talk about AI specifically, then you ask yourself, well, what are the knowledge ecosystems that Botswana has? We talk about, having one of the most oldest vaccine companies.
Yeah, BVI, Botswana Vaccine Institute,
so you look at that, instead of just going off into the sun and trying to figure out what are the things that we're really, really good at from a human intelligence perspective. How do we layer artificial intelligence on top of those things and become better and become global leaders in those things? 2-3 areas. That's how, rather than just saying, let's just write an AI strategy and start build. You're like, how? Where you don't have the money to do that.
Yeah.
And you don't have the resource, and you just do so, but you have a lot of human resource in an area of intelligence where you've been leading. What have you done to take that intelligence into technology that you can package for the rest of the world? That's where AI would have helped you.
As you said, pick a pathway, pick a path that you have a history and human resources that have been working at. We were discussing earlier that apart from the vaccines, which for Botswana and the region is really tackling one of the most notorious diseases, which is foot and mouth disease, which is very unique to our area. But at the same time, we have over almost 60 years of diamond mining. You can imagine the data from the pipes, from the pits, from the plants, from the supply chain, from the actual carrots themselves. So that's quite unique data. And the human resources. I'm part of those people that have been involved with that.
You could have built a whole industry around AI and biotechnology using the framework of, the vaccine industry that you have here. You could have built a whole industry around AI and mining, where you build tools, and that's what's going to then drive innovation, because those two areas already have value. And you have organizations in those two sectors that are always going to be your test beds in country. And that means you can build, tools in young companies that can actually use that knowledge to then create global value. So effectively, you're using what you have and layering AI on top of it. You're not just going completely from nowhere and saying, we want to start AI in fish farming. How does that make any sense? So you write all these policies and all these strategies, you want to build all these infrastructures, because even when you want to build infrastructure, if you did something in a sector where you already had success, the corporates in that sector will actually invest in the infrastructure because it benefits them.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to worry about, we don't have infrastructure. So they're like, there are ways to think, but it is about the thinking process of micro traction value that then allows you to say, I'm not just building a framework document that's great and glossy and fantastic with all the numbers and all the charts and whatnot, but at the end of the day, trying to implement that time thing 10 years later, you're still there having that discussion.
Let me challenge you, because you mentioned earlier how in Africa, there's been a battle or a struggle to diversify our economies, exactly, especially that we are bestowed with all these minerals and natural resources. From, I don't know whether it's from, we like government bashing, whether it's from government and political leadership. That's a different matter. So we've almost failed to do that transition, like UAE, like Singapore, and all other countries that have done it. I'm quite keen to hear about the Celtic model as well from an Ireland point of view. And then in terms of AI, and we can generalize emerging technologies here, that we also not leveraging, and I can speak from a Botswana perspective because I've been involved in the technology space. We've had some of the best technology, ICT, R&D policies in the world. I mean, going back to the 1998 policy on ICT for Botswana, I mean, I always tell people if we had implemented that, we'll be so far away. But a couple of years later, it gets revised. Currently, we have the latest one is 2011, which again talks about what we should be focusing on the pathway, and then it doesn't happen. Even the amount of commitment in terms of resources that we put in terms of your GET coefficient, the amount of GDP that we place on research is way below our target. It's way below the AU target of 2%. Botswana will not even do 1%. So I'm just saying these struggles from now that I'm going to place you from an European perspective, why are we struggling with these things? Why are we struggling to make that which everybody thinks is tasty, and that's where the wealth is?
That's an open-ended question. Like setting me up for it. I mean, personally, personal point of view, I think most African governments and countries do not have a communal mentality.
Communal
mentality, which means if we are rich, can we provide value, baseline value for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Baseline, it's not even that difficult. It's actually not that difficult to provide baseline value.
Mm-hmm.
Not even do subsidies or anything, just baseline, things that allow people to go fend for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is also down to, the consistent mentality of scarcity in the mind of those people who've managed to come out of, those sort of like poverty zones.
Yeah.
They get into the position of opportunity, but they still have a strong scarcity mentality. Where they keep acquiring and acquiring. And it's almost like you're acquiring wealth for your 15th generation. That might never even happen because everything might be wiped out before you get there. So we don't really have the mentality for community. And community means, will people have basic shelter? Will they have basic education? And can they just afford basic food? The rest, let the capitalism ecosystem run. Whoever is the smartest, you can go
ahead.
But everybody just has basics, and if you look at a country like Botswana with the GDP, that should just be the framework. Everybody should just have basics. Right? Then it's now, how do we build on top of that for some of our smartest people in our country? How do we build then to keep maintaining that basic? So we transition new economies nonstop, and we can keep increasing the value of the basics that we provide for people. So, and the government is really to build those policies and the baseline infrastructures to do that, right? And then, because it's a combination of both government and private sector.
Yeah.
So, and when you talk about private sector government, it's just a human being. There's no thing called government. It's people who are in there. There's no thing called private sector. It's still down to people. So strip away government work, strip away private sector. You're down to a human being.
Individuals.
Because that human being can go from working in private sector to being in government. So what is the problem with the average African human who gets in a position of authority? That should be the question.
Big question. Big question. Yeah, no, we'll ponder over that. We can ponder forever on it. Now, coming back to AI and now at organizational level, and we talked about it a little bit earlier at the round table in terms of how, as an organization, should be preparing in terms of AI readiness. What are the mechanisms that organizations who are fairly novel and new to these technologies, how should they prepare themselves? What's a typical roadmap that they should be to up their maturity level, so to speak?
I'm a big advocate for human-centered AI. So I'm a big advocate for human beings having a role in this new world of AI that we are building across different types of sectors. So which means for every organization, I advocate put people at the center of your AI transformation. So how do you make people the center of your AI transformation? You need to reskill people. You need to reskill people across every part of your organization, from finance to whatever it is, based on just internally what you want to achieve of better efficiency. Before you go and buy those tools, before you pay for all those software, before you reskill people about what this technology is, what it can do for them, the skills they need, how they can even use these tools. So you're adding another layer of value to the people who work for you. Because at the end of the day, you're either going to get rid of everyone or you're going to reskill them to become more valuable for you. And in the society where we live, in Botswana, Africa, where we have limited job opportunities, we are crying unemployment is a big thing.
It's a big problem, yeah.
Imagine if we just automate and eliminate people, what that would look like. Even though the technology is great, but the impact that would have. So that's the first thing. Organizations have to think about the role of people inside this AI transformation. Then, because once you think about the role of people, then you think about the role of data. And now you've also connected the people all the way from your receptionists who work in your organization to the value of data and how it leads you guys to an AI transformation.
Okay.
So that by the time you're going into your technology tools, your AI tools, your infrastructure you want to build, you already have an army of champions. And you have the bloodstream of what you need to do to also build your own contextual AI products, or even build on top of somebody else, or even if you're using something, to actually use it efficiently for the outcome or the return on investment that you want. And then you remove the issue of what you call, redundant gatekeepers in your organization, because, most people I talk to is like, am I going to lose my job if this thing happens? And the answer to that question is yes.
It will happen.
Yes, if you're not reskilled. Yes, if you don't have the skill to be part of this. And I don't mean as be an engineer. No. I don't mean be a data scientist. No, those are different. I just mean an AI readiness for people in your organization. So that also, it's also contextual mind shift. The person's mind has changed. Then you set them on a journey to learn more. Imagine people in your organization coming to tell you there's this tool that we can use. Whoa, I'm so excited because now I'm no longer thinking I'm going to lose my job or whatever. I'm thinking this can make job better. And that means that I can go home at 2 p.m. and go hang out with my kids. I don't have to be here all day. I don't have to spend the whole weekend doing this bloody thing when all I'm just trying to do is be seen. And I'm, so you're also saving money. You can reinvest that money in. So a lot, so that's the first thing. People, data, infrastructure.
Yeah.
When you go with the people, we will safeguard this economy. We will reskill. We will be able to position our people for global dominance.
Yeah.
Then the data becomes part of the bloodstream because the people are now so, everybody cares about the data. Everybody's interested in how that data will become. So everybody collects the data very well.
Yeah.
So people become they become the champions of data by themselves.
Data consciousness and all that. Yeah.
You don't even need to, it's called self-governance society, right? And then the infrastructure. So when somebody comes to sell you the infrastructure from the US, India, whatever, you're like, let me think about it first. Is there a local company here who can actually help me with that infrastructure? And that's how you grow your own localized economies. So now you say to yourself, well, in this same space, how do we then, because you now have this generation, this Gen Zs, everything for them is about AI and what they're doing. So it's easy for you to bring these people into organizations because you have less friction.
Yeah.
Because they're coming with all these great new ideas. And this guy who's head of compliance is like, what is this kid talking about? And the kid's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I can do this in 5 minutes. And the guy, so you are also removing cost of friction in your organization and allowing you to bring in really smart young minds because they will feel that this organization would allow me to actually provide all that knowledge that I have into. And then you literally build knowledge management systems that warehouse all the repositories of knowledge that everyone in your, so that as you're transitioning people as well, it's okay. So that is really one of the big, it's not even about, we all know the stuff the technology will do for you. Efficiency, prediction, agriculture, like running, like, defense. I can go on about the technical aspects of it. But I worry about the human side and the connection between the human side and the
Why are you so
side.
worried about the human side?
Because I'm an African and I see unemployment in this continent.
Yes, that's how it's really,
we're struggling to create jobs. And we have the nexus of a technology that can either help us create more jobs, reskill our people so that we're still very relevant in today's new world, or cannibalize us to a state where just a consumer society, and I don't even know how much longer that. I mean, give me an example. Let's take somebody in the creative industry, right? The person makes online videos for small businesses or for companies or somebody in digital marketing. Actually, that's a really good example.
Yeah.
One of my friends runs one of the big companies. So when ChatGPT first came out, and so I taught him how to prompt.
Okay.
He's a CEO.
Oh, he's a CEO.
Yeah.
You taught him.
Yeah, I taught him how to prompt, how to do a couple of things. A week later, he comes back and says, I just fired my whole PR team.
Oh, really?
So I'm like, why?
Is that in Europe or is that in
Africa? Yeah. I'm like, why? He said, I can do this thing myself. I just prompted. So I was like, okay, wow, this is bad. I just literally, that was not the objective.
Yeah.
Because he was like, why am I paying all these people this money?
When I can do this stuff. And
so I'm like, okay, calm down. How much time do you have to do this thing? I said, can you teach me how to set prompts so that it keeps producing for me? But the point is, you're not a subject matter expert. Even this ChatGPT is great. It'll provide for you like standard templates of a PR.
Yeah, it's very generic.
But where's your company in that? Where is the consumer you want to talk to? So what we need to do, rehire those people. Let us train them how to use this tool so well.
Yeah.
And then they continue to use the context, which means instead of them doing one every 1 week, they can do 10.
10, a lot more. Yeah, a lot more.
And then you can use them for other things in the organization. Then they have more time.
Almost, yeah.
It's like, oh, that's a good idea. Because now I have to pay someone to clean up the prompt. Like, yes. So we went ahead and trained all these people.
Okay.
And later on, he's like, wow, my people are so efficient. I even give them time off.
Wow.
So the idea wasn't that the tool was not good, but the impact of the people straight away was like, let's get rid of these people.
Yeah.
The other example, some guy in the creative industry, so they make videos and whatnot, and a bunch of these SMEs, companies who they make video for. So one of my friends, she was one of those SMEs. She's like, hey, these guys are charging me $4,000 to do this thing. Quite a lot of money. And I'm like, okay, cool. What exactly are they charging you to do to make this video, to do this, to do that? I could probably teach you how to do a bunch of those things a bit quicker
and cheaper
with these tools. But if I teach you those things, you probably get rid of these guys completely. And that's how they do what they do well because there's their stamp of, creativity still on that thing. But it's costly. So I'd rather do it with less creativity. And so I said, can you introduce me to those guys? So she did. I said, listen, these are some of the tools that you can use to make the same thing. So you can finish 90% of the work and then you put your 10% print on top of it.
Okay.
And then you can sell it to her for less than 1,000. And you can do a lot of it.
A lot more.
For more clients. So they're like, wow, this makes so much sense. So I said to her, go back to them. They'll reduce the price. So she went back. She's like, they just said 900.
Oh.
I'm like, yeah, see? So the point, you see where knowledge.
No, I got you.
So now a lot of it is, it's if you do, so organizations, you really, really, really have to, without a shadow of a doubt, the human side of preparing people for in your organization. And then as a government, preparing government officials, preparing policymakers about knowledge of the enterprise and the commercial value, as well as the consumer problems of this technology. No government in Africa has done that.
No government.
Preparing its own, not writing some policy, preparing people with proper education and, really analyzing the landscape to understand where each thing fits before you then say, wow, getting those light bulb moments out of people. That's, then you start having a conversation that we're moving forward. We're not just writing policy documents.
John, are there countries that have mastered the art, or that are busy mastering the art of leveraging AI? Earlier you referred to India. We've talked about Estonia. Are those countries the best examples? I know that countries like Botswana, we really love benchmarking. We like checking others, how they're doing things, and then we try to follow type thing. But are they models that at a country level?
The question you ask yourself is, what part of what you have can you model around them? I still go back to the baseline. If you model around Estonia is already developed enough to transition to AI because they're already developed. They're already data transformed.
They have addressed the people and the data aspects.
So when you benchmark it against them, you don't understand all these other things. It's not like jumping from mobile to GSM. It's not the same thing. Because we keep thinking, we can leapfrog from... No. This is not... The leapfrog also requires you to understand, so that once you understand that, okay, this is what they've done. Now, I don't have all this, but I don't necessarily have to go do all this. What do I need to do to get me? So when you're benchmarking, you're not benchmarking based on where they are. You're benchmarking on the things that they have that you don't have. You need to benchmark around what they have, and that's based on what they've done and how long it took them to do those things. To where they are now, where they're building innovation tools, which they say, because they're now that developed. They have infrastructure. They build innovation tools. They have money to... So now you go and benchmark against them. Whereas you look at more emerging markets like Southeast Asia. So, okay, well, what do they have that we have that they're benchmark? They have human resources. And they're training their human talent to become the fundamental baseline for their transition in. So they are literally wanting to acquire a massive percentage of the skills market in AI. Because they're using their natural infrastructure, which is
the people.
And we talk about our humans a lot, but we talk about them in quantity. Not quality. So qualitative human capital against quantitative human capital are two completely different things.
And that's the difference. I'm very tempted to go back to the question. I know we've talked, in other words, we've really spent it, which is, we talked about how India, earlier, about how India is planning to train hundreds of millions of data engineers, again, from a global perspective to support the whole AI industry, and how we have the human resources. We talk about AI, we talk about technology, and we still don't make things happen on the ground. From a fear point of view, there's talk about 300 million jobs that could be wiped out by AI. So that's coming from a fear perspective, but there's a lot of opportunities in there. But I want get the question back to you, because it's something that I ponder. We have a conference tomorrow. We're going to have people here. We've had the conference before. We have a lot of technology conferences, John. But in terms of doing the things we say. I think yesterday when we chatted, we talked about the will. The will. If we just have that will of saying, this is what we need to do, and we're going to do it.
See, you take that way one further and call it willing to fail to find success.
Yeah.
We're not willing to fail to find success because like sometimes you just have to, you will fail.
Yeah.
But in failing, you learn something that you've never learned before and you find success. Yeah. So all these societies you're talking about, they had the willing, it was an agile willing to fail. Like I'm willing to fail, but I am not willing to not do it.
Yeah. It's got to be done. We're doing this.
Do I have all the answers? No. But do I know that I have what it takes to do it? Yes, I will go find out. So when you talk about it's the same thing with, conference. We have so many conferences in Africa. God have mercy. Conference after conference about youth and people. Oh.
Let's say that again. Well, people like you make a few dollars out of it, I think.
Stakeholder conferences, workshops, policy forums. Youth forums. Like, I'm sure the youth in Africa are done with youth forums. Like,
they are being called it.
So when you do, and it's the same thing on the other side, we have policy documents. Policy documents about Botswana.
Yeah.
But where's the doer attitude? And in the doer attitude, we wait for the West.
Yeah.
So we have no money. So that's why, but you have money to run conferences and run policies and go for meetings and do all this other stuff, but you have no money.
Yeah, never have money. Yeah.
Tiny little micro traction things. So let us run a scenario. Botswana has enough money. Decides, let us train actively 5,000 data engineers, AI engineers, and data scientists.
5,000.
We're going to train them properly, and we're going to set up an infrastructure center here. We can buy smart computing where they can play around with. We don't know where we're going yet, but that's what we're going to do. Then on the same day, we're going to go out to the global market and say, we're coming with 5,000 people. So if you need jobs, we're going to actually go start, like any other business, it's a country's business, go solicit for jobs globally. Ourselves, use our embassies everywhere to say, in 6 months, we have people. And then we're going to go here in here, every company here, you're going to give an internship to one young person or two. Same way you do national service, this is what you're going to do. We'll remove 0.5% tax off you or whatever. Okay? Do you know what would happen? Do you know what? No policy document is written yet. Do you know what would happen? The global world first would look at you and go like, what are these people up to?
We'll get attention.
Attention brings money. 2, you go around the world, you will find jobs because you have power. You have basically for people to work. You know, how much is a laptop? You buy a laptop, you have look at this place, it's empty.
Yeah.
Turn it into an infrastructure center for people to really come because you create
work. We have a free zone across the thing, it's still empty.
You literally are a global recruitment agency for your own talent that you're developing.
That's right.
We call it HTML India. Back in the day. Did you ever see that Indian developer that you used to pay?
No.
How many people use Indian developers back? A lot of people did. Did you ever see that guy? Did you even know if he was the one doing the work? But you paid him.
Yeah.
Because you just believed that Indians were trained and they were good at software engineering. So everybody went there. What will happen? People will start coming to set up centers here for talent outsourcing in this smart technology space.
Yeah.
And that will be just your one sole campaign. But the ripple effect is that a lot of these young people will start building innovations.
Yeah, themselves. Yeah.
They'll also start building
collaboration.
All of a sudden, you have a whole. So people now know you for this one thing. 2 years from now, you would have revolution. 2 years, 24 months. But would they do it? No. They're going to go back and write a policy about how it's going to be done.
Like right now, I mean, the biggest topical thing, I mentioned this at the round table, biggest topical thing right now is the Data Protection Act and putting it in place and making sure everybody complies.
But it's stopping the use of data. That's the problem with those, our act, what we copy. Because Europe hasn't really gotten it right yet with their data protection and GDPR. They're struggling with that. Whereas we could have just learned and said, our Data Protection Act will focus a lot around data sharing, security, and protection. But ours is just protection of the data. Okay, to whose value?
Are we protecting it?
You're protecting gold and nobody's using it. Whereas you can connect the data from agriculture, data from financial services, data from healthcare. And you can anonymize, and young people can, when we say Africa has no data for AI, it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. We just don't know how to connect the data pieces we have, and we don't have the will to actually do the work to aggregate this data so we can actually have open data framework for our young people to build on. So they've told us Africa doesn't have data, so we believe it. Every time they tell us something, Africa doesn't have this, we believe it. So the big consulting firms, Africa doesn't have this.
They come here and do some big jobs,
But how? How? So anyway.
Yeah, it'll get there.
Don't get me started.
Well, no.
Well, good place to stop.
Good place to stop.
Yeah,
no, thanks very much. I really appreciate it. It's been extremely insightful. And I also enjoyed it. So I hope you did. And viewer, that was fun and that was insightful. I hope you enjoyed it. And please see you next week at the next episode. Thank you very much. Thanks, John.
Thank you.